Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, in this video, I'd like to talk about my honest opinion about how best people can recover from personality disorders. Okay, especially NPD, BPD, ASPD. I mean, these are pretty serious disorders and very insidious. Um, so I mean, it's no small matter to talk about, what can really be done to improve these situations. Before I even start this, I think we have to assume that every mental condition has a level of severity that probably even the best psychiatrist can't really improve. Okay, I mean, if you have somebody who has profound schizophrenia or profound autism, I mean, even if you could improve it 15%, you're talking about even people that deserve to be called disabled. You know, so I think we have to be realistic, and we have to first understand that it's not going to be like everybody can be improved, or everybody can be. People can improve, but the idea that everybody could be really recovered, I think that's just we need to let go of that expectation even at the beginning. Okay, but even if we were to try to imagine like a really effective path, for people, I think we do have to be honest, and we have to say in what world would that be possible? Okay, because as it stands today, if we're in a world today where the only access for a person with a moderate personality disorder, if the only access is just through therapy, okay, I have my doubts. Okay, I have a lot of doubts about that because I think therapy, the therapy models and the psychological world, I think they're full of a lot of dogmas and a lot of oversimplifications, and I think they're maybe too much into the theories and really. I don't see I don't see heavy practical application for day to day strategies. I see a lot of focus on loving yourself and being mindful, and those are great things. But what about the day to day existence? Getting in fights, getting provoked. I mean, yeah, the word mindfulness, the practice, having some self love. These are all very important things. But in the day to day today, you really get tested because I think personality disorders really get tested when we're frustrated or when we're turned on, excited, enthusiastic, or enraptured, taken by spells. Um, when things are fascinating and we're in the rapture of how exciting something is, I mean, we are just sitting ducks for problems. And, even with therapy, those things can evaporate in seconds. So basically, you have to say, like, in what world could we have, an effective recovery? And I think the world presently is not favorable. Okay, because at least in the United States, I think people are just, at least at this stage in our culture, people live in their own homes. People live in their own spaces. The idea of goodwill and charity, it's very measured. It's very little. And I think that we don't really have a culture that really understands goodwill and charity. And the other thing that's important is that, in my opinion, I think it's a mistake, okay, to define something like borderline, narcissism, antisocial, like the psychologists do, to define them in the bottom 5%, okay, and then the rest 95% people are just what? No, no. I think in all of mainstream normal population, okay, in the mainstream normal population, we have spectrum, a spectrum. Yeah, at the end of the spectrum, you're diagnosable. But even if you're not diagnosable, even if you're subclinical, there's many people who have, spectrum issues, okay? Anybody who has an issue with rudeness, with impatience, anybody who has an issue with impulse control, anybody who has an issue with a bad temper, anger management, we all are on the spectrum. Okay. Anybody who gets too caught up in routines and habit, compulsive behavior, we're all in the spectrum. Okay. So I think that, in my opinion, it's going to be hard to reach the people at the extreme if the mainstream people are just happy-go-lucky and no problem. I think if there's awareness that reaches the mainstream okay, for how we all deal with our spectrum issues. Okay, everybody can work on or deal with anger management, impatience. Everybody can try to be a little more generous, a little more charitable, have a little more goodwill. You know, all of us can deal with impulse control. The people at the extreme, it's they're going to have a much more serious program. But I think all of us can. So I think that if we, as let's say, if those of us who are normal, I'm not normal, but those of us who are normal, if we dream of a better world, I think we start by setting an example. We all have our spectrum issues, and we don't have to get obsessive about it, but just have some public awareness, some pop culture awareness that we all deal with spectrum issues, and it's not just those people. That would be very helpful. The second thing that I think that would be very, very helpful, and of course, I'm not putting down people. You want to go to therapy, go to therapy. That can be very helpful, but I really believe it takes more than that. You talk to any drug addict, any alcoholic, rarely will they say, "Oh yeah, I just therapy." Usually, they have some support group. They have peer groups, peer counseling, or they have something like a sponsor. Okay, those things, yes, I believe would be very helpful for people with personality disorders. Something like a peer group, something like a sponsor, I think. Um, the other thing too is there has to always be very effective, very effective recovery tools that do not cost any money. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I'm saying is, I think I think people with personality disorders should organize themselves, and people on the spectrum should organize themselves the same way addicts have organized themselves to have peer support. Okay, that's waiting to be done. You know, Anybody who has had personality issues and has overcome even just a little bit, okay, should be willing to offer assistance, no charge, to people who are not as far along. Okay. Um, and I think that anybody who even has a slight bit of progress with a personality disorder should be really eyes wide open to help out and to be available to help and support, or to provide support, friendship to people who are maybe struggling with these spectrum issues. Okay, so I really believe that the sponsor model, having a sponsor, that model, and the peer support, I think, are very important. The other thing is that just because a lot of people could have, let's say, narcissistic spectrum issues, okay, that doesn't mean they're all compatible. Okay, some narcissistic spectrum people are very, very how would you say, very aggressive, very powerful. Others are more shy, sensitive. I think it's really important to break out into peer groups that are similar in temperament and similar in values, outlook, personality. So I really think it has to be organized according to temperament. Just because two people have BPD, they could be completely incompatible. Okay, so the idea of peer support, it's not just that you fall into the same diagnostic category. It's also temperament, values, personality, education level, things like that. So I really think that when we talk about peers, that really means people who are similar. Okay, and I think that no matter how good a therapist is, there is no substitute for dealing with a person one on one who's gone through very similar to what you have gone through. Okay, the therapist probably can only imagine some of the things that we go through with personality disorders. So I really think that anybody who has struggled with personality disorder and they've found any improvement in their life, even just a little bit, they should be willing to really make themselves available and find a way to help other people who have similar issues. Even if it just means friendship. You know, like say if I let's say work in an office, okay, and I've had narcissistic spectrum issues. If I see somebody else in the office who I can see is struggling with narcissistic spectrum issues, okay, I don't have to come to him and say, "Hey, I think you have narcissism. I want to help you." No, it can be more subtle. It could just be offering friendship. Just going fishing, going hiking. Just hanging out, going to have Mexican food. just sometimes the unspoken is louder than the spoken. Just the presence. They could probably smell that you're doing good. And maybe things don't have to be said. Maybe it's better that way. But just reaching out. Having some charity, having some goodwill. You know. Um, and again, I really do think that I hope that we start to look at the personality spectrum issues as not far from addiction issues. Okay, I'll bet you neurologically they're very similar. Okay, very very similar. And so if people with addictions, if they have tons of support, tons of they have tons of resources, peer support resources that don't cost them a penny. Okay. Well, I think people with personality disorders should really open that up, and that should be opened up. And it's not like you shouldn't have to wait for some high authority to create these things. The peer support 12-step groups that exist for what do you call it, for substance abuse, for addictions, those were started by addicts themselves, alcoholics and addicts. So there has to be a point where people with personality disorders or even with spectrum issues are willing to get together and actually do the same thing, and that I think is missing big time. That's big time missing. Probably ASPD is maybe more ahead of some of the other disorder categories, because I think a lot of people who come out of prison do have some kind of peer support network. My understanding is that I don't know too much about it, but I think they have like halfway house networks, and I think the federal Bureau of Prisons has what they call the RDAP program, which I think has been very very helpful for people with ASPD or spectrum, criminogenic issues. So where is that for the BPD? Where is that for the NPD? And so you don't have just the worst people trying to organize these things. Why not the subclinical spectrum people? Why don't they help out? So if you want a better world, yeah, we're not going to reach everybody. We know that. But if you want a better world and really want these things dealt with, why don't we all identify our spectrum issues? And why don't we all at least try to do something similar to what's been done with the substance abuse of the addictions? It doesn't have to be a fundamentalist, quasi-religious. That's the problem I have with the 12-step. There's a part of it that almost is a little bit fundamentalist religious. It's probably borrowed from some kind of born-again Christianity. Well, we live in the 21st century. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be more modern. It could be more enlightened. It doesn't have to be hokey spiritual crap. It could just be nuts and bolts of peer support and sponsorship. So even in an informal way, I even take that on myself. I should network with other people that have personality issues, spectrum issues. I should even take steps to see, even in the most informal way, if I could be getting involved in some kind of peer support and sponsorship kind of, whatever. It doesn't even have to be a program. It could just be informal, but it could be something that does come into the culture and does make the world a more favorable place to make those things happen. Because I think you always have to ask yourself, when you try to dream up a solution to a problem, you have to say, in what world would that be feasible? And in the world as it stands today, I think we're missing some elements in the world that would allow even the possibility of a something analogous to what people with substance abuse issues, addictions have. So that's what I have to offer as a person who has struggled with NPD spectrum issues, and it's on me too. Every day that I don't get involved and try to progress with that idea, I'm part of the problem too, right? So I think we should all think about that, and again, it doesn't have to be super formal. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy of the 12-step, but it has to be, something out there. So the world has to get better, and that's on us. Goodwill, charity, involvement, and because if we don't get out there and make the world a better place, it's not going to happen automatically. So, thanks for watching.